Welcome to Team Building Cultures, the podcast designed to deliver tools and tips for improving team communication, collaboration, and fostering a culture where teams thrive. Now, here's your host, Beverly Hathorn, owner of Strategic HR Consultants.
Hello, listeners, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Team Building Cultures. I am Beverly Hathorn, your host, owner of Strategic HR Consultants, where we believe that an organization's culture is the soil in which all things grow. Today, I'm going to be speaking with Kyle Gillette, an extremely interesting and accomplished gentleman. Kyle helps business owners who feel like they're on an island and in a state of SOS, stressed out, overwhelmed, and stuck, and he helps them shift to having more courage, confidence, and freedom. Kyle has diverse experience running 4 businesses and a nonprofit during his career. He has multiple coaching and behavioral assessment certifications and is the creator of the Blue Shirt Leadership Framework, where his clients learn to be 1, be self aware leaders, 2, lead with accountability, 3, use a growth mindset, and 4, empower others. Kyle is also the author of Right Now Leadership, a 4-part framework for today's leader. He regularly speaks at businesses, interviews on podcasts, and provides leadership training. Kyle loves doing CrossFit, hiking, mountain biking, cross country skiing with his family and friends. He's definitely an outdoorsy guy. And he's going to talk to us today about the 5-step process to empowering your team. And those 5 steps are fascination, study, inquiry, accountability, and celebration. So let's just jump right into it, Kyle. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Beverly. It's great to be here. I'm excited to share with the audience and hopefully learn from you in the process as well.
Yeah, this will be great. So, let's just start out by telling us what's Blue Shirt Coaching and how did that come about?
Yeah, so Blue Shirt Coaching is that 4-part framework that you read on there, and to give it another go, the concept came from my experience working in a men's mentoring program. I worked there for about 10 years, helping mentor guys 18 to 25 that were kind of off track in life, and we had them build a life map. And then I got into HR and did that for 2.5 years in an organization, and got exposed to DISC assessments. And I realized that I love doing DISC, and that's a tool that I'm really good at and really intuitive with. And so I started to do workshops on that. And then I opened my own business based on the thought I could coach and I can do those assessments. A couple months into the business, I realized I needed my own intellectual property. I couldn't do whatever I wanted with DISC. And so I started to create a framework. And everything that came to mind was, I was trying to come up with an acronym because I love acronyms or mnemonics. They're really helpful for me to remember things. And I was struggling because I kept on coming up with things like SSPH or something like that. That's not memorable at all. And one morning at 3 a.m., I hear a voice says, I wake up and I hear self-awareness. And that was the word I needed for everything to come together. And from there, jumped out of bed, and I spent the next 4 hours just sitting at my kitchen table coming up with what eventually became the Blue Shirt framework. So that was a pretty cool experience. I felt like there was some divine intervention in the creation of this thing. And so I'm excited to be able to share it with the world and impact people through it.
Wonderful to recognize divine intervention. I like to think that we all experience it. We just don't all recognize it, and we don't always know how to follow it. So I'm really happy for myself and those that you've impacted that you followed that direction and came up with the Blue Shirt coaching framework. And then one of the other things that I like that you said is when you talked about self-awareness. Really everything begins with self-awareness. When you finally decide what it is you need and what it is that you like to do and what it is that you're best at, that kind of lays the track out for you. So, that will definitely help us get started. So let's talk about how leaders can better empower their team. Give us some tips on that based on your Blue Shirt framework.
Yeah. So within the framework, you have the idea of a leadership house, and I talk about it in my book right now, Leadership, and I kind of go into it in detail. So I'll give the kind of the brief overview of it. And being a self-aware leader and having a leadership house, you start with the foundation, and the foundation is self-awareness. Then accountability, or lead with accountability, is the nails that holds that leadership house together. Without accountability, things are going to crumble. And then the U is use a growth mindset, and that's the walls and the roof. And that's where we make adjustments. We have to paint the exterior, we have to adjust the interior, replace furniture, rip out the carpet, right? These are the changes we make in our leadership, metaphorically speaking. But then the last part is empowerment. And that's the idea that if you're self-aware and you have high levels of accountability and you have a mindset of growth, you can empower people. If those pieces aren't in place, it's a lot harder to empower people, right? So empowerment is the windows and doors in that leadership house, is where people look into your leadership and they go, wow, Beverly's doing some amazing things. I want to be a part of that. I want to be under her leadership in some way, shape, or form. And so people knock on that door and you let them in, and they get the opportunity to be led by you in some capacity. Could be as an employee, could be as a client, or just as a friend even. Empowerment has its own levels, though, and you mentioned them in the beginning. And the first one is fascination. Beverly, what's the last movie that you saw, whether it was at your home or in the theaters, that you were just riveted by? You were going, oh my gosh, this is such a good movie.
I saw a movie called I think it was called I want to say Airplane, but not the old, comedic Airplane. It was called Airplane, and it was about this group of people that crash landed in the I don't know, in some tropical land, and this little island was full of bandits and robbers, I'll just say. And then they spent the whole movie trying to escape from and run from and not be captured by the bandits and robbers. Thrilling. It was just totally thrilling. Really
And when
good.
you watched it, were you pulling out your phone and checking your phone? Were you getting up and walking away from the movie? Were you distracted?
I was not distracted at all. I was completely engaged and engulfed in what was going to happen next, because it was constantly something happening.
Yep.
So I was like, you can't miss nothing on this movie. I mean, you had to catch everything.
Perfect. And that I bring up that, and for the listeners, think about your favorite movie, right? Or think about this wonderful movie that really hooked you, because that's how we want to start with the people that we work with. We want to start with that assumption that they're fascinating, that we can't look away because of what they have to offer, because of the insights and the thoughts that they can bring to the table. When we approach it that way, we're approaching it in our unconscious mind from a very different angle. In my training in NLP, we program ourselves with the words that we use, right? And so if I'm programming myself to think that this person that's my employee is boring or doesn't have good ideas, or they're a poor performer, the bits of information that fly by me every second, which is about 1 million of them a second, I'm going to grab onto the ones that are negative, the ones that prove me right, because we have to prove our unconscious mind's right. But if you pivot and you decide that, you know what, this person's fascinating and they have fantastic insights, and you start to grab that information, now your experience with that person shifts, and possibly more importantly, their experience with you shifts, because they see the change in the way that you treat them, right? So you have to start with that when it comes to empowerment. If you don't start there, the rest of this doesn't work as well. So second, now you assume that they're fascinating and you're riveted by whatever it is they have to share. You pay attention, you don't pull out your phone, you don't get distracted, right? You're paying attention. So now you can study. And study isn't reading a book. Study isn't going to a conference. Study is paying attention to the people that you lead, studying them. I mentioned DISC at the beginning of our conversation, having them take an assessment so you can learn their personality type, or just paying attention to them in the way that they ask questions, or the way that they bring problems to you, or the way they solve problems. You study them. Then you get to inquiry, which is basically empowering them by asking open-ended questions so they can think for themselves. right? That's ultimately the goal. It's the heart of the process. And it's the goal of any great leader, is to empower the people around them to think for themselves. When you do that, they take ownership, right? When I've worked with clients where I give them ideas of what to do, or employees, and I tell them what to do, the level of commitment is much lower than when they come up with the ideas themselves. So then they own it. And when they own it, you can move to the next level, which is accountability. You can hold them accountable. And more importantly, they'll hold themselves accountable at a much higher level because it was their idea. And when it's your idea and it doesn't work out, or it does work out, you want to make sure to follow through on that. You want to stay in integrity with it, right? So that's your accountability. And then the fifth part is celebration. Because as we empower people, they're going to screw up. And we want to celebrate that they gave it a try. We want to celebrate the growth and the feedback from that growth. And then, of course, when it's successful, we want to celebrate that. And that's easy. But it is both sides of that coin. We want to celebrate the failures in whatever way that looks. And there's ways you can do it. And then obviously celebrate the victories as well. So those are the 5 components of empowering other people. And it's really amazing the difference it makes in organizations. And I got stories, but I'll stop there.
I would love to hear your stories. I can see where those things would provide a better culture and a better environment for employees. And I'll just touch back on a couple of them. When you talk about the celebration, the failures and the successes, I like to say I give grace to make mistakes, because if I challenge you and hold you accountable, and I give you an opportunity to own whatever process or task that I'm delegating to you, we all know how people treat things that they own. So that's a given, but when it comes to the celebration part, if you make mistakes and you make errors, and then I don't know, string you up by your toes or something, you're going to be reluctant to step out there again. Not only are you going to be reluctant, but the people that watch me string you up by your toes, they're going to be reluctant too. They're going to be like, oh my God, not going to try anything, because if I mess up, that'll be me, so we don't want our teams to feel this way. And the accountability portion, when you delegate, when you trust somebody to do something, sort of like you were saying about the words that you use, you'll validate in your actions. So when we trust people, and I say, I think Kyle will be great at this, I'm going to give him a chance. And, now Kyle knows that I'm placing my trust in him, and he knows that I'm dependent on him, and I'm expecting him to do well because I think he has it in him, so people tend to act the way they tend to give you what you show them you expect from them. So that sounds like a wonderful framework. And a lot of that I've already seen in my own work and in my own dealing with teams. So let's just back up a little bit and talk about studying your employees. I have a broader term. I would call that building relationships. But what's involved there? How do we study our team?
Yeah, there's a lot of different approaches, and I know it depends on the business owner. I have an architect client that he takes his employees out to breakfast once a quarter, and 1-to-1, right? So once a quarter, each one of his employees, he has 7, he takes them out to breakfast one at a time, right? So it takes a while to work through all those employees. So that's why it's only once a quarter. But that breakfast is, probably around an hour and a half each time. And now he's really getting to know them. So that's a pretty intimate and detailed way to do it, right? So some leaders won't be willing to do that, or employees won't be willing to do that. Okay, well, you shrink it down. You do things after work, right? You have an activity, a culture building activity where you have fun together. Out here, there's another organization, they do mountain biking together, right? Or they go and do events together. Okay, if that doesn't fit your organization, that's fine. Take the employee to coffee, right? It's as simple as taking them to coffee. If that doesn't fit, that's fine too. Find them in the lunch space and hang out with them for 10, 15 minutes in the lunch space and ask them some questions. And it doesn't have to be super personal. But the point is, whether you're in person or an online business, you're intentionally taking time with these people. And they give you those opportunities frequently. So every time someone comes to you with a problem, that's an opportunity for you to study your employee. And you pivot that, instead of creating a solution for them, you pivot it and give them the opportunity to bring a solution, which then gives you the opportunity to learn about them and learn from them. And you can do that with a simple question: what do you think? 4 words: what do you think? They bring you a problem, you offer that question, and you shut up and you wait, even if it's awkward. And it will be awkward at first if this is not normal for you, but you wait. You give it 8 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds even, because that will basically force them to say something. And even if they say, I don't know, you could still follow up and say, well, if you did know, what would you do? Right? If there was no way of getting this wrong, what would you do? Right? You just follow up with those open questions. So ultimately, studying is taking those moments where you have interruption in your day from the employee, or while you're walking around helping to manage the team, that you insert yourself into a conversation for 2 to 12 minutes. And that's how you can incrementally study your team. There's other ways that are, much more intentional and strategic, but those can happen by accident. And I think a lot of times we have to start the kind of low level 2-minute type interactions to build up that interaction with our employees.
Yes, yes. Let it happen organically. And I like when you say, just flip it back and ask them, well, what do you think? And I can see where it would be awkward in the beginning, and especially they won't be prepared because they've come to you expecting you to tell them the next step. But as time goes on, they will know when they come to you. They'll already have something in their mind or a thought, because they know you're going to ask them. He's just going to ask me what I think. So let me just be prepared with something. So they're thinking while they're coming to you with it. And that's growing a new effort or a new skill or a new muscle. That's exercising a new muscle in that employee to help them to come to some conclusions themselves, so that when you finally do come to Kyle and he asks you, what do you think? You can just rattle it right on off, and he can either add to it or, say, well, that's good, but let's think about this too, or whatever, but at least it creates a dialogue, as opposed to them just coming to you saying, hey, how do I do this? And you say, oh, you do this, this, and this, and they go off, and then 2 weeks later, they're coming back saying, well, how do I do this? So, you're gonna grow your employees when you study them, as well as build your knowledge and understanding of them. It's a really great concept. I definitely like that. So,
Well, and it adds to the SOS, right? At the beginning, you read about the stressed out, overwhelmed, and stuck. And when we are consistently, there's an author by the name of Steve Sisler, and he uses this phrase, farm out their thinking. And so it's a great way to summarize what a lot of employees do, kind of by accident, but also because of the training that leaders have put in them. They bring a problem to us, and then they farm out their thinking to us to resolve it. Right? When you do that, that creates a lot of stress for the leader, because now they think they have to respond to everything, which then turns into micromanagement and so on and so forth. Right? So the benefit of doing this, the benefit of putting the work in, of studying your employees and asking questions of them, open-ended questions, is you're going to take away the stress from yourself in significant ways. And of course, there's the innovation, creativity, and collaboration that comes, that helps your bottom line. I mean, the benefits are huge, but we have to get over that hump of, I don't have to have all the answers, even if I know the answer. And that's the hard part. As someone that coaches business owners and they come to me with questions, I have the answers for them, especially in certain areas where I know that I'm right because it's worked repeatedly with other clients. But I shut up and I let them discover what's right instead. And now they own it, and I don't have to be stressed by it, right? They own it.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes I think we forget that leaders have other responsibilities than to just, you know, micromanage people and resolve the issues that are going on their team's desks. They have other responsibilities other than just, just doing that. And I like the farm out your thinking part, because that will relieve a leader sometime, especially when I've had people that I know work really well on their own and they can think things through, that relieves me of having to check in with them, or having to, think that they may need some help, or even checking in with them to see if they performed a certain task or assisted a certain customer or resolved a certain issue. I know that they did, because that I've studied them, and I know that that's how they're going to operate in that fashion. Yeah, great. So tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so the book is called Right Now Leadership, a 4-part framework for today's leader. And it walks you through the 20 mindsets and 20 habits of great leadership, of a blue leader. And I titled it Right Now because right now, Beverly and I have the opportunity to lead. In this conversation, we have the opportunity to lead and be an example with what we say, how we go about this. Right now, people that are listening have the opportunity to lead. And in the book, I give you these mindsets and habits that you can apply right now to your leadership instantly. I wrote it in a very practical way with instructions on how to apply it, with stories to back it up, and metaphors and all kinds of things to bring it all together so that you can pick and choose the mindsets and habits that fit you as a leader best, but immediately apply them because you know it's going to make a difference right now in your leadership. And so I've designed the book that way. And I end it with a 10-day plan to implement the mindsets and habits into your leadership so that I don't leave you hanging. Because it can easily be overwhelming if you have all these ideas of what you want to do, but no plan to implement. So I help you with that to give you some suggestions on how to do this over the course, to start going over the course of 10 days.
Okay, then, actionable items.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. Right Now Leadership. Yeah. So where can we purchase that book? Where can we find it?
Yep. Amazon, Barnes and Noble. There's a Books A Million, Ratukin. There's 6 different retailers that I have it in, and then I have it in a couple local bookstores where I am as well. But the easiest way to find all that is just to go to my website, blueshirtcoaching.com/book. And then you could pick which retailer makes the most sense for you.
Okay. All right. So just go to your website. Okay. So do you have any offers that you'd like to make to the listeners?
Yeah. So right now I'm offering the book. You can pre-order, and then I'll give you the Kindle version of it for free. You just have to pre-order it and then email me, a screenshot or whatever that you purchased it. And then I'll send you the Kindle version for free so you can start reading right now, because it publishes October 17th. And so you can't get it for a little while still. Also in the book, I have offer for free consultation as well. So people can schedule that either through the QR code in the book, or just go to my website and you can apply for a free consultation there. And that is not a sales pitch. I promise. It is a coaching conversation. I had one with a gentleman yesterday. I almost said his name. Don't want to do that. I had one with a gentleman yesterday, and he ended up getting a really big breakthrough as it relates to leveraging his intuition. He's a creative type, and he loves to write, and he likes to write poetry as well. And he wants to purchase some property, and he has some money to do that. But he's been dissuaded from doing that multiple times by his own self, by some fears, by other people trying to pitch him on things. And we had a conversation about it. And by the end of the conversation, he had a really good plan for himself, and he knew how to develop and trust his intuition more so he can make a decision quickly, because he needs to make the decision quickly. So real results on that call. It's not a sales pitch. It's opportunity for you to get some real results from the conversation.
Great, great. So yeah, listeners, October 17th, the Right Now Leadership book will be out. If you go ahead and pre-order it now, you can get a free Kindle version, which is wonderful. And you can also get a free consultation with Kyle. Just visit his website. And once again, Kyle, if you would tell us what that is, and how, if there's any other way that our listeners can get in touch with you.
Sure. Yeah. Visit blueshirtcoaching.com. That's the way to get a hold of or connect with me for the consultation. And then if you go to Facebook, if you want to join, I have a community of business owners, and it's called Blue Shirt Business Community. If you go onto Facebook and just type that in, there's a private group there. There's about 170 of us that gather and communicate and talk and build one another up and ask questions and kind of mastermind in a way on Facebook. And that's a free group to join if people are interested.
Okay, wonderful. So if you want to hear more about Blue Shirt coaching and get those actionable items and that free Kindle, just go ahead and visit Kyle at blueshirtcoaching.com and get everything that you need there. This has been a great conversation, Kyle. I really appreciate your time today. And I really appreciate all the nuggets that you shared and talking about SOS and the Blue Shirt coaching framework. It's been great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beverly. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. And for those out there, if you want to learn more about strategic HR consultants, if you need assistance in your recruiting or your talent management or performance improvement, just give us a call. You can reach us at 888-272-7711, or you can visit us online at customermeasures.com. That's customermeasures with an S.com. Thank you all for listening, and until next time.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Team Building Cultures. We hope we have delivered helpful and enlightening information to help you create your dream team. Join us next time